Oh no, not again! Run! In the arms of the angel.
In my personal opinion, Borderlands 2 is a bad game. Or, at the very least, a unfinished game. Just saying that alone, I can already see the dislikes piling up, just writing the script. But, hear me out. Welcome to a new series I will be calling Travesties, where I take a look at games that are highly reviewed but in my mind deeply flawed. In my premiere episode, I'll be looking at Borderlands 2. Released in 2012, Borderlands 2 was a highly anticipated sequel to the original released in 2009, which was also loved by most. Given that Borderlands 3 had recently been announced, I decided to work on this video, which was an idea I had had for a few weeks before the announcement, as coincidentally, I was looking for a fun little game to pass the time one day and decided to give Borderlands another shot, which may have been a mistake. So why do I think Borderlands is bad? Am I just not hip with the kids anymore? Am I getting old? Not appreciating the edgy humor mixed with the awesome action? Doubt it, as some of those traits are probably the only reasons I actually enjoy playing this game. The other being a similar relationship many have with movies like The Room or Sharknado. Thinking, just how rough does it get? While I'll admit, it's a very easy game to get addicted to, the bright numbers flashing with the amount of damage you're doing, wanting to see just how high you can get that number. The constant grind for better loot to see what crazy effects it'll have. Or how much you can obtain to become the greatest fighter and just waste every enemy you come across. These few enjoyable traits only do so much to pad the damage caused by the rest of the game itself. To explain what I mean a little more deeply, I will show many of my reasons for thinking that Borderlands 2 is an incredibly broken and unfinished game. The examples I will be using to prove my outrageous claims are things like hit detection, collision, general game bugs, game-breaking bugs, graphical errors, poorly designed AI, questionable game design choices, and exploits. To begin with my examples, let's start with some of the smaller glitches. Things that don't really affect your gaming experience, while at times almost adding a bit of charm to Borderlands itself. And I'm not entirely sure how long this video will be, so I'll be sure to leave timestamps in the description to each segment I just listed, just in case you wish to jump to any of my more critical points or don't care for the particular topic that I'm talking about. We'll start off slow and talk about smaller bugs before getting into just how broken this game really is.
My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
So let's begin. During my 170 plus hours in Borderlands, I had come across quite a few graphical errors. Mostly just little things such as floating objects, the laser of an angelic guard still showing up despite it being dead, or similarly with the warrior's fire breath staying on even after he swims through the lava and emerges again. Floating cameras glitching through my UI to the UI itself shaking because I had simply opened it while sprinting. I had only experienced it once, but I found it entertaining. I had zero special ability sending Clone into the battlefield to distract my enemies when I had noticed that the game had switched his name with a random stalker I had been fighting. Another bug with the Clone is when I decided to fake my own death, sending him onto the tracks. When the deed had been done, I had noticed the body remain lying on the tracks, lifeless. Yet, when I approached, it told a different story. A speech prompt had popped up while staring at the dead corpse of my clone. Chatty bastard. Some more examples include how sometimes Citizen of Sanctuary will suddenly explode during a siege even though they weren't hit by anything. Although I must say, one of my favorites is when the fallen foes try to amuse me with their dances, in the hopes of receiving some kind of mercy. Silly things, you know? Another common type of glitch to occur involves animations, typically ones that are only supposed to play while the NPC is standing still, and sometimes the animation will trigger while they are moving, but the animation itself doesn't include a walk cycle, leaving the NPC just to kind of float to their destination, while waving their arms around. This follows over to certain enemy types and their own animations, a good example being that of the Bullymongs. If you were to kill one while it's crawling out of its cave, they just kind of launch straight into the ground, and it's quite entertaining. Another example I had come across a couple times are the Hyperion bots. If they are jumping or flying through the air and you manage to stagger it, instead of falling to the ground during that animation, they will instead receive enlightenment as robot rapture begins, remaining floating high in the sky, majestically. However, where we tiptoe into gameplay glitches is when the same scenario occurs during a boss fight with the warrior. What I believe is going on is if you damage him too much while he's in one area, it's supposed to trigger some kind of retreat animation. But if you manage to pass that threshold after he begins a different animation, like flying or walking to a new location, the game will instead think that he's in the retreat animation, causing his character model to disappear as it's supposed to be out of sight. So while visually he's walking across the battlefield, the retreat animation ends, causing his character model to suddenly vanish out of nowhere. That's just my basic understanding of what's going on here, and I tried to do some experiments to see if I could really figure out what was causing this, as it had happened several times throughout several playthroughs, so it definitely wasn't a one-time glitch. Now I'd like to talk to you about something a little more serious before the next topic. Sanctuary. Many residents living within these city walls use them for protection from the beasts outside of them. However, what many don't realize is that they aren't the only ones staying within these walls. Rumors spread that the dead have returned to live with their former fellow inhabitants. A team had been sent, hoping to set these rumors aside as nothing but fabrications. However, what they had recorded has left the city in a state of terror. Here are their tapes.
What? I just saw a figure standing in my face, dude. Wait! They're walking towards us. What the Oh, what was that? Settle up. It's okay. Oh my god, dude.
Now to begin with glitches that actually have a bit more influence on the way you experience the game. Still sticking with some of the more minor glitches for this section, as I am saving the larger game-breaking glitches for their own segment. So to kick things off, let's start with something I had come across a lot. Enemies popping into existence. Now I understand this could be part of some culling, keeping the enemies hidden around the corner until you clear an area so it's not flooded, or to prevent them from just kind of charging you and leaving no enemies in the next area because they all spawned at once. I mean, if that happened, that would just look silly, right? Another small thing that kind of built up into a greater problem was my character's lack of an ability to climb a ladder. Now, sometimes he would just refuse to grab onto the ladder itself, or other times he would get to the top and then just fall all the way down for no reason. Or just start spazzing at the top of the ladder, forcing me to jump down and climb it again. Small things, but after quite a few times it got rather annoying. I'd also come across enemies who have different properties when it comes to collision. While I get stuck on every tiny invisible wall, we'll get to that soon, the enemy is able to pass through walls, hiding in objects, or drive out of the map. Speaking of driving out of the map, how are the vehicles in Borderlands 2? Well, it's about driving on ice with invisible walls everywhere. You'll slide all over the place, then just suddenly hit something and either flip, fly up in the air, or stop completely. In short, they suck ass, awful controls, and they're just a buggy mess, constantly colliding with the invisible walls, causing many failed missions, but more on that later. Some of the similar glitches with cars are when I'm driving and then they just hit a ledge, sending me straight into hyperspeed and crashing into a wall. Also, the cars themselves kind of have wonky physics. You're able to lift the entire thing if just the tiniest little bit of a tire is on an elevator or something. I mean, I can't even kill myself in these things without breaking the game. Some other funny things that happen involve dialogue. Like, every time I've done this mission, Ellie has repeated this line halfway into a sentence.
And on that day in March 2017, Monkey Jones killed...
And almost every time Claptrap talks with this citizen, they just kind of loop on through random bits of dialogue over and over again, like it's Oblivion.
Greetings, Evoker.
How goes it?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Great.
So long.
Be seeing you. Greetings, wizard.
Well met.
Something I can do for you?
Objectives are also a tad random, like pushing this minecart, having it slow down and stop until you have to open the next door, only to realize it's just half a millimeter off, so you have to run all the way back and nudge it, then run back and open the door. Whether you're hunting Shorty and Sinkhole does this weird little dash at you, or a mission item like when you're trying to raise the flags and the generator dies, so you're told to fix it, then second later you're told the mission is done and destroy the generator even though you haven't even fixed it yet. You can also make all of the racers during the Zafford versus Hodunk feud kill themselves during the race by just parking your car in the middle of the road. The cutscenes are also pretty entertaining because they take place in-game, so whatever objects are there remain there, including enemies, taking you out of a couple important moments. And just a couple more small things like when you're in the middle of a battle and a wind blast just takes you across the entire battlefield. Or objectives being too slow and you have to run back to trigger the next part. Or the fact that when you teleport to your vehicle, for some reason, it takes a chunk out of your health. And possibly one of my favorite missions, where a guy is demanding that you shoot him in the face. He's pretty adamant about it.
Boom! Squish! Yay! In the face! Not so complex! Need it! Want it! Need it! Have to have it! Face shot! Boom! Brains everywhere! Not the knee! Not the arm! Not the spine! Face! It has to happen! Facey face! 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 Tired of waiting! No more waiting! Need a face shot! Boom! Squish! Yay! In the face! Not so complex! Need it! Shoot me in the face! In the face! Do it! Shoot me in the face! Face, 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 face! Now! Bullets in the face! Want him! Need him! Gimme, gimme, gimme! At the sound of the bell, it will be face shooting o'clock! Bong! Knock, knock! Who's there? Shoot me in the face! End of joke!
Only to be met with the reason why he wants to die. Because he can't. As he has become an immortal god, seeking death just so he can feel normal again, while you sit there, unable to grant him his wish, as he is to forever roam the lands, a shell of a person, granted with immunity, whose only wish is to die. Borderlands is a serious game sometimes.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
So now we get to talk about the hit detection and the collision because, oh boy, this game it just nails those things. While traveling through Pandora, you will notice strange phenomena occurring in random places, just unpassable objects, not viewable to your own eyes. Yes, invisible walls, and lots of them. I couldn't tell you how many times I've ran around and just gotten stuck on nothing. Some are excusable, like, taking shortcuts, climbing over rocks. I can see that blocking you. But then there's stuff that makes absolutely no sense. Like this wall that is blocking several boxes of loot that have been placed there in the middle of a rooftop. Or this psycho who continues to block me even after he has died. Or this living enemy, who apparently has an intense gravitational pull because no matter how far I go around him, I cannot get past him. Although, I have to say, one of my favorites is during the Hodung vs. Zafford feud. You blow up a bridge during a race with several boxes filled with fireworks. Problem is, I guess they didn't expect you to drive through this area again after completing this task, because the boxes, while invisible, still leave a hitbox around them. So, if you drive to where a box was previously located, you will suddenly stop as if it is still there. Also, for most of the video, the gameplay won't have any audio because I'm commentating. And I was listening to YouTube videos the entire time, and only recorded through NVIDIA's Shadow Play, which would just record the last 15 seconds if I encountered something. So it wouldn't take up so much space if I just recorded it all. Yet, some things line up kinda funny while listening to a video from John Wolfe, where he almost seemed to be aware what I had just done, and even mocked me for it.
We can find more pictures. Look at him! Did you see him? He was running against the wall. What a dumbass.
A quick note, I'd like to point out our death areas in Borderlands 2, and how some aren't communicated very well. Like this area that almost seems like it's part of the racetrack, and when the mission objectives tells you to get behind this area, I naturally thought, I'll just drive through this little canyon. But I just suddenly blew up, and I wasn't entirely sure why, so I tried it a couple more times and I just kept dying, so don't go there. I couldn't be sure if this was just a glitch or a death area. This game makes it hard to tell the difference. But to finish the collision aspect of this segment, let's talk about bullets, and how the air tends to block them. Whether you're sniping some bandit from a distance only to have your bullet stopped by a fence that is located 2 feet below it, or the tower you're standing on top of blocks the bullet despite a clear several inches between the tower and the bullet. Even during the final boss battle with the warrior, he seems to have random invisible walls that will block all bullets from hitting him, and some kind of magical shield to protect himself from critical strikes in his vulnerable areas. Another thing I'd like to point out are those Irish bastards. They executed Order 66 while I was attempting to help them, because my bullet had somehow hit a friendly despite none of them being near me. Which wasn't even fair, as the leprechauns have the ability to run through cars for cover. Another thing that isn't fair is how the enemy's bullets will go wanted on my ass, curving through the air, missing on my screen, but killing me nonetheless. To finish this segment, let's talk about something that I'm sure Krieg players have ran into a lot. You pop your ult and charge the enemy swinging like a madman, only to have every single swing go right through the enemy, dealing no damage. Most commonly being the boss battle against Flint and the scavengers, leading to many deaths as I could not heal from killing them after they'd hit the timeout button.
And I disappear. And it's time to slay all day.
Preparing to strike.
And here's where I complain about the game for many of its problematic features and game-breaking bugs. And yes, we will get to that horrible memory I had mentioned previously. Now, to give the game credit, that intro is a little misleading. During my 170 plus hours, I had only had the game crash about 3 or 4 times, which is decent, I guess. But back to the weird occurrences that I had while playing. There is an enemy called the Ion Loaders, who will project a spherical shield around them, blocking all bullets from coming in, while also electrocuting you if you were to enter the shield. Something strange is if you walk up to these shields while aiming down your sights, it'll prevent you from walking into it, and instead allowing you to climb on top of the shield, something you're normally not able to do. And another weird thing about them, if you're downed, you can't go through the shield, but if you're up, you can. So there's some weird property to it. I don't know. It's really dumb though. Another feature in this game is its pretty RNG based with the revival system. When you die, you go into a down state where you are still able to use your guns, and you can either get revived by a teammate or revive yourself by killing an enemy before the timer runs out. The problem is the system doesn't work very often, especially if you involve environmental hazards like explosive barrels, since even if you shoot the barrel and that barrel kills someone, it sometimes just doesn't count as your own kill. You'll just die. There's also an annoying thing where you can deal 99.9999% of the damage to an enemy, but if anything else does that last sliver of damage, you die. The AI also changes drastically when you're down, going from super aggressive, charging at you with no care for their own life while you're alive, to cowering behind any bit of cover they can find to avoid you at all costs while you're injured, making it very difficult to revive yourself on top of the previously mentioned factors. Before going into the last two glitches that really convinced me to make this, I'm going to talk about a couple of other issues I had, like injecting Varkets before they retreat to evolve, leading them to be unkillable enemies that won't leave you alone. A big boss fight with Saturn where he was almost dead only to randomly despawn for no reason, forcing me to restart the entire event.
Are you freaking kidding me? Well then what did I get all that ammo for? Oh my god.
A stupid mission where you have to listen to Grandma Torg for like 10 minutes telling a story, list back things that happened in the story to make sure you're paying attention, and if you walk more than 3 feet away from her, you'll have to restart. So, I cheated, and I watched a YouTube video while looking up the answers to what the questions would be, only to have a rogue AI follow me into that room, killing me during the mission, making me restart again. And other stupid deaths like explosions killing me through walls. And now, for the final two game-ruining experiences. One during the Best Minion Ever mission, which takes place in Southern Shelf, and near the very end, where you fight Flint, the fat pyromaniac, you have to bring Claptrap with you, and since his kryptonite is stairs, you have to clear out the base and use an elevating platform to hoist him up. Problem is, if you decide to take a walk while he's being hoisted up, this will happen. He gets stuck, going back and forth on the platform forever. This is the very last thing you do before finishing the mission, so I had to restart the entire level, which takes forever. And this isn't the only time this has happened. I've ran into this bug at least 3 times, only to have finally discovered the fix was to Alt-Tab out of the game and go back in while near Claptrap. So that was frustrating. But the absolute worst thing I'd ever had in Borderlands 2, and possibly any game, the thing that really showed me how broken this game was, is this stupid race in the Crater of Badassitude. My god, this race. So many attempts, so many glitches, so little effort put into this map. And the worst part is when early in the race you failed, there's no way to just restart. You have to wait for the mission to end before starting it again. So I spent a lot of time running back and forth, waiting for the timer to run out, only to run into another bug, driving, suddenly crashing, physics being completely random, enemies popping into existence in front of my car causing me to crash, invisible enemies blocking my path. Then I discovered something. A massive exploit. I don't know how the developers missed this. So, the way you spawn vehicles in this game are at catch-a-ride machines, where you can spawn a car and teleport to the car if you already have one spawned. But here's the thing. If you already have a car spawned and drive up to the starting line, you have to wait for the countdown to begin the race, preventing you from cheating, like jumping the gun while the counter is going. The race will just reset. You'll have to start over. However, if you spawn a vehicle and teleport into it, it starts you at the starting line, and you can just take off and keep driving while the countdown counts down, giving you a massive head start, which almost guarantees you a victory if the map wasn't complete garbage. God, I hated that race. So, the environment of Borderlands 2 is a complete mess. But what about the people who inhabit it? What about the AI that fill the land of Pandora? Well, they're a bit cowardice. My presence alone instills such a level of fear among them that even the toughest of bandits and beasts that live in these lands during fights, many times the enemies just realize the legend they are up against and completely lock themselves down in fear, not only choosing to stop attacking me as they know it wouldn't do anything, but also allow me to kill them as they accept that once I had come into contact with them, death was the only ending. Seriously though, the AI freeze so damn often and they just sit there letting you shoot them, and sometimes even after they shoot you first, and then they just suddenly switch and become docile. Or in other instances, they'll completely forget you were there, and sometimes they don't even address the fact that you had just shot them, and they continue on with their day as if nothing happened. Sometimes they'll go completely blind and not even give you the time of day as you walk past them. Sometimes they'll shoot at a random wall with no enemies nearby. You can shoot their allies in front of their faces during a mission where you're supposed to be a double agent, which clearly blows your cover, but they'll ignore it since they weren't supposed to see you kill that person, so they have no response. Or you can cut the shit out of Bloodwing and Mordecai has no response either. Or they'll show you their inner shady and go nuts.
In the parking lot circling, screaming, I don't give a fuck, with his windows down and the system up.
Sometimes the world is just a little too much for them, and you'll catch a couple randomly committing suicide.
Ride by, women and children are running scared as we're pillaging, reeling in all the villainous animosity. Villages once stood but are now smoke, choking survivors. So those that are close to rise to the force them to open wider when they crawl through the rubble and see us stalking them, troubling thoughts are running through the
shaking that ass on the floor, bumping and grinding that pole. The way she's grinding that
Oh boy! The only rewarding thing about playing Borderlands 2 is just finding how many ways you can break it. Whether you're trying to or not, if you're me at least, you're going to break a game a lot. It's a gift and a curse. This game is no different. The exploits are aplenty. I guess you could include that race trick in here, as, well, you aren't supposed to do that, but damn near every boss fight can be exploited in a way that you will never take damage unless you peek out too far. Damn near every constructor fight can be beaten just sitting behind something, picking it off with no opposition. Saturn, that big dumb bastard who despawns, can be shot from just a flimsy little fence, and it blocks all the missiles he launches at you. One of my favorite but most obvious ones being the T-Rex at the end of the Crater of Bad Attitude storyline. You can just sit in the room that they place you in and pick the T-Rex off, including Piston after the stage. The bunker can also be shot from below with several ammo shops nearby, so you don't even have to worry about running out. Good old Slappy can be shot from behind a couple pipes. And the best boss exploit, the warrior, the end of the main storyline, can be picked off from safety from behind the lava fall if you start the fight, save, quit, then rejoin, or you can get it closer by running to the very edge where the drop is when you enter the boss fight, just enough that it triggers, then run back, or just jump up the stones because they really didn't design that well. Just in case you fall down. Then you also have infinite ammo from the drop in front of you, and the warrior cannot target you with any of his abilities unless he's in a very specific area doing a very specific attack. If not, then just fire away and win. Okay, we're gonna get this out of the way. As a person who first completed Borderlands 2 as Krieg, let me tell you, this stat on this ability is bullshit. 12% my ass. Other than that, this segment won't be super long, just talking about intentional decisions made that I question about the game. The rest of the video has mostly been unintentional bugs or exploits that were overlooked, but this will just focus on dumb ideas that somehow got left in the game. Like, near the end of the game, while you get to Hero's Pass and Claptrap is opening the doors, you have to clear out all the enemies before he can open the door, which, fair enough, lots of games do it. Doesn't make sense, but fine. However, this dumb-ass drone that's tanky, fast, and hides once you do damage, it's ridiculous. I spent way too long just trying to kill what should be one of the easiest enemies to destroy simply because it was way too fast, and anytime I hit it, the thing would just hide behind the mountain and get its shields back. And sometimes it would glitch into the ground, making it impossible to kill, which, of course, then forces me to restart the level and kill all of them again. And bring myself back to square one fighting that same exact drone. And I guess you can count this as a small exploit for this next one, but when you return to Sanctuary, or at least where it used to be before Lilith teleports it, there lies a crater, leading to the Caustic Caverns. Normally you have to fight through waves of bandits and take several lifts down to the area, but instead if you're feeling a little badass you can just jump over the railing and get there in just a few seconds with no hassle. Then there's questionable, but I guess acceptable things, like how you can't sneak by these bandits guarding the gate that leads to further in this dungeon. It's a bit of a tease seeing how it's open when you first get there, and it is a little tricky to sneak through unless you're Zero, but fine. Another small thing is when characters are present in several areas at the same time for something like a DLC, but when you have to hand in a mission to someone, even if you find them somewhere else, like in Sanctuary, you can't hand it in because that's not where they're supposed to be. Which is also, I guess, acceptable. However, this damn mission leading up to Flyboy's boss fight is the dumbest thing. For the reason I listed before with the drones, but this time you have a time limit. You have to get 5 things of loot off of the cargo helicopters while also killing the attack helicopters, but if you damage one, they just run away and heal. Are also too tanky, so it's hard to just burst them down. My god, I spent a while here, which made exploiting the boss fight after feel a lot better. And finally, the quest indicators are iffy sometimes, like this one, where I'm clearly in the area that it's referring to, but the zone is actually above me with no hint of such. So I spent a while looking through this cave for a monster that wasn't even there, which annoyed me a bit. Okay, I guess to finish things off, I have to say some positives now. After all, I don't really think Borderlands 2 is a awful game. It's broken, that's for damn sure. But it does have its fun moments, which I'm sure is how a lot of people feel about games like Skyrim or Fallout, even though I've played those for hundreds if not thousands of hours and haven't come across nearly as many bugs as Borderlands 2. Fallout 76 of course being an exception, and a video explaining how many bugs a guy ran into is what partially inspired me to make this. So what do I like about Borderlands 2? Well, the looting is pretty fun, although that's just our human tendency to hoard stuff and feel good when we get unique, powerful things. And it does feel nice to finally kill that big boss or finish that dumb race, even though that's more of defeating the frustration that was that race. The sniping feels pretty good too. Getting multiple headshots in rapid succession of each other, feeling like the old-time FaZe clan, before they went full retard. Or just picking off enemies while fighting a boss, just to pass the time. Or when you need to revive yourself and you pull off that last-second long-range hip-fire snipe that revives you. And a couple collaterals while you're playing a sniper is also great. Also, littered throughout Borderlands are some pretty funny moments and awesome Easter eggs, like lines of dialogue or Facebook posts on computers, or a blue screen of death shaming the owner for watching illegal tentacle porn, and how screwed up their computer is now. Celebrating Claptrap's birthday when no one else shows up is fun, or when the game won't let me high-five him. Come on, game. Let him have this. Finally, snapping after listening to Grandma Torg for too long and stabbing her dumb old tits, or fighting a gigantic evil snowman who's attacking a town and calls you a dick for killing him by taking off his hat. Or you can laugh knowing the game isn't always bugging and sometimes you're just the bad driver. There's nice continuity moments, like after destroying the blimp in the Crater of Badassitude, you can still see it flying through the air on fire. Or hilarious weapons, like an SMG that slows you down and has multiple midgets screaming when you shoot it, which led several characters to suicide after acquiring such a gun. And I really can't blame them. There's also a sniper that mocks you when you reload. Dialogue like Claptrap telling Jack he's going to teabag his handsome corpse, only to be ruined by the fact that the entrance to the final area has stairs. And random citizens saying sad dialogue like, "I can't even hold my kids," before another guy laughs at him. Or even during combat, having an enemy humming songs while attempting to kill you. And
I don't do many videos with him. Love him to death.
the sound of a horde Goliaths all screaming at once.
Is like the greatest feeling in the world. Who cares if it's Star Wars and you don't like Star Wars?
Music to my ears. Then there's just the unexpected moments, like during the introduction to Zed. Sanctuary's surgeon. He asks you to make a small incision, which normally you hit him, but you can also try jumping on him, and he kinda just pops. I tried the same thing with Jack at the end of the game, but no luck. Or helping a small town, giving them a new shield, and asking you to test it, by firing a missile at it, only to discover the leader of the town left the shields off and targeted a guy's house who's been a dick the entire time. Then turning the shields on for real, so you can test them. And some of the absurd boss fights, like a gigantic unkillable turkey called the Ravenous Wallow Gobbler. I couldn't stop laughing after this awesome entrance to a monster truck boss fight, thinking it was going to be some epic battle, and I shot it a couple times and he just poofed out of existence. Lastly, I think this funny line from a citizen in Sanctuary mocking pre-orders by having it add nothing but saying, "I'm demonstrably wealthy," only to have microtransactions in Borderlands 3. I wonder how it'll go, but I hope you guys like this kind of video. It's obviously far different from my last few. I decided to take a little break off making videos on specific YouTubers and their devious practices. I still have a couple I've been looking at, but it's mostly about finishing the scripts. However, I just wanted to make a gaming video for a while and finally decided to buckle down to do it. So let me know if there's any other games I should make a similar response to. Games that typically are held high with praise, but possibly undeserving of such. Next one could probably be Dying Light. but it kind of depends on how this video will do. I'll start collecting footage once this is up, but until then, I hope you guys enjoy any other videos I've made, and until the next video, hope y'all have a good day.